when it gets down to the very end, you see Gruff losing drive. I'm like,
see, there we go. The great look on his face again. This is awesome.
Oh man. You're gonna have to send me screen caps, Sam.
I will do it. Don't you worry. I would put that bit in.
That's funny.
But in any case,
hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Elliott64, and welcome to the RoboCast. I'm joined alongside
Steve the American Killjoy
and World of Woodrow.
And we are here to discuss the third episode of BattleBots Bounty Hunters. Before I do that, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone on the YouTube channel for 1,000 subscribers. It finally got around to it. It's mind-blowing for me.
Good really, for you, my guy.
I mean, we just talk about robots on the internet. Like, it's great. Anyway, we're joined by someone today who knows his stuff about his robots. So much so, he actually has won BattleBots in the past. Introduce yourself, sir.
All right, I'm Ray Billings, and yeah, I did win in the past. We're going back too far now. It's 2016 when I won, so hopefully this coming season we can get back to the top of that pile.
We are absolutely not worthy. We are absolutely not worthy. Ray, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to, as I say, talk a load of rubbish about robots with us. Where do I start with Tombstone? I mean, obviously, I mentioned you won BattleBots. You've come second.
Actually, Tombstone's interesting. It's the only BattleBot that's won BattleBots in two separate weight categories.
This is true, yes, because it was a super heavy.
I won as a super heavyweight and as a heavyweight. So it's the only robot that's done that. Cool. So it's been around a while. 2004, I think, was the first time I built it. And so it's a fairly, polished design. It looks really simple, but I mean, we've spent a lot of time fixing all the little details to get it where it is today.
It's interesting you say that because I was watching, there was some reason why I was watching the 2015 season the other day, and when the show first came back to TV, and it was so apparent, like, because you were just the most prepared team there, because you had a robot that has been fighting for so long. Everything else just seemed like mediocre and kind of sluggish by comparison. Like, it's not a shot at anyone else, of course, because you I think, was it 3 weeks or 4 weeks you had to turn the bots around? Basically,
yeah. And so, like, I competed with my previous to BattleBots heavyweight robot called Last Rites. So it was a slightly lighter weight robot, but very similar in design. So a lot of the unique custom machine parts, I could migrate from one design to the other. So I could get ready for that weight category faster than most people could, just because I had a lot of the parts already made before they announced.
Makes a lot of sense. If you've got a robot ready to go, then I suppose that gives you an inherent advantage.
Well, so we had to build a new frame, a new armor package, and stuff like that. But the customized drive motors, all the electronics, the weapon motor itself, those sort of things, I already had all that sitting there. So we did have a lot of work to do to make a new robot, but I didn't have the same length of work that a lot of the other teams did.
Yeah, starting from scratch is obviously by definition a lot harder.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward a little bit. 2020, obviously you've you came back as the pretty much the one with the target on their back, because obviously there was no Paul this year as well.
Right.
Witch Doctor very last minute kind of came in. You were the only one with a title to your name this year. Was there kind of not an expectation that you're going to get some hard draws? Because obviously, of course, you are. It's Tombstone. Like, you're going to give Tombstone like the most difficult draws. But like, what was the kind of expectation coming into this season?
Obviously, as a team, we were hoping to come back with another championship. We feel that way every time we show up, that we're ready to go the distance. And yeah, they do stack the deck against us. We're always going to get the toughest matches because those make for good TV. And honestly, I'm okay with that. We need the show to be successful. We need that sort of stuff. But it takes a toll on the team, all of us. I mean, it's a 2-week marathon. Mm-hmm. So the longer you're there and the more stuff you have to fix and the more you have to prepare to go to the next match, it just drags you down. And yeah, we had a few unlucky breaks, which happens. And, they showed up in the arena. We got all kinds of repair stuff. We're doing some modifications, some changes to design next time. It's going to look very similar. And it's not going to be similar at all internally. We've got all kinds of things that we're changing.
Is that the mythical brushless I could hear suggested there?
Okay. So far, no. We are not transitioning anything to brushless, but I'm making some custom modifications to the weapon motor to try to shrink the height on it a little bit.
I've seen this on your Facebook. You've been posting about it, like taking the casings apart, haven't you? Very similar to Carbide did.
We're almost the same thought process. We're a step behind them. That's the only way to put it. So the cast aluminum case has been a problem. I've sort of been able to get away with it because I mount the motor on a titanium plate, which has a lot of spring to it. So we've been able to use the cast case longer than everybody else because I kind of had some measure of shock mounting in there, but it's reached the point where I'm going to have to do something different. So we're doing that. We're changing up some of the armor package, some of the frame structure that should be stronger without an increase in weight. We'll see how that all plays in the arena. But right now, the plans are good. We'll see how it ends up when we get it all together.
Best laid plans.
It always surprises me how sturdy Tombstone is. When you look at it sort of bare bones, it is sort of very sort of tube frame, and those tubes seem somewhat indestructible at times. They can just take a beating and they will just keep going.
Okay, so it's chrome moly tubing. They'll use that for like race car frames, motorcycle frames, things like that. The real benefit to it is strong. It's stronger than mild steel, 10-15%. But it also has a bit of flexibility to it. So it doesn't you can abuse it and it'll twist and then kind of go back into shape a little bit. It does have some measure of flex to it, which is why they use it in those high shock applications. And we've used the same material for years, and so it's like, okay, so we'll put a thickness of tubing in one spot, and that failed. Okay, well, let's put a thicker piece in there for next time, and just keep playing with it over and over until you get something that you're happy with.
It's a known quantity, basically, for you guys.
Yeah, okay. Like, if you look at it, it looks like it's all 1-inch tubing, and you can't see any difference. And there's like 5 or 6 different tubing thicknesses in there, based upon what we've broken in the past. So it's not like it's.
It's a
I wouldn't say it's this grand engineering, like we did all the calculations all over. No, that broke. Let's put a bigger piece in, and just kept doing that over and over again until we got to where we are right now.
Absolutely,
fantastic stuff. So we're here to talk about your Bounty Hunter episode.
Yeah.
How did you find that? Like, obviously, a tournament to fight you. Before we kind of crack on, was there anyone who you were desperate to fight in this field and in general, really?
Okay. I would have liked to have got somebody I hadn't fought before. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
It's like Rotator fighting a flipper, basically. They hadn't fought a flipper really before.
It's something like that. So, I've been playing in this game for a long time, and everybody knows everybody. And I've fought most of the upper end robots at this point. So it would be cool to get something I haven't had to deal with before, just to see how that plays out. Yeah. But you know me, I'm whatever makes it to the end, and that's the one they give me. That's the one I got to chew up. I mean, I'm ready for anybody.
Yeah, you're there to fight. That's the best way to be, honestly. You're not dodging anybody.
The only dangerous opponent you have is your next opponent. Don't worry about anything down the road. It's the one in front of you. That's the one you got to concentrate on.
Yep.
Absolutely. Before we get to yourself, though, we'll crack on with the fights of the episode itself.
I know. It's interesting where we have a lot of fights before we even get to talk about the person that
I know.
That's what makes this format interesting and weird, but
absolutely
still fun. This was the episode of fire.
There was a lot of fire breathers in this episode, wasn't there?
A lot of fire.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fire, I'm going to start off with Gruff and Gemini.
Yep.
Gemini wearing the big boy pants, I believe is the official term for their outer armor.
Look for it. I mean, it's really weird not seeing 2 Gemini twins out in the arena at the same time, but I really like the big boy pants.
Doing its best Carbide impression.
Well, exactly. It looks
really
excellent. And I think it could potentially take some big hits if it faced some form of large spinner. Obviously, we didn't get to see it here.
Well, apparently, I've read somewhere online recently that wasn't the. There was a bit of a disagreement within the team. They weren't sure which setup to go for, and in the end, they went for this, outer armor setup. Whereas if they'd have gone with the two, there was more chance they could have maybe knocked it off the pulverizer in the end or something like that.
There's other things here too. I mean, this whole bounty hunter thing was happening towards the end of the regular tournament,
right?
And so they had already. If you watched in the previous matches when Uppercut fought,
oh my gosh,
Gemini.
Yeah.
I mean, he's spraying Gemini parts every which way, right? So at this stage of the game, it's harder for them to get two robots running than it is to get one.
Sure.
And I didn't talk with them. I don't know that that's the case, but I could see at that point in time, and I had just been, this is with what we have left, this is the best foot we can put forward. Mm-hmm. And yeah, if they'd had two against Gruff, I think that might have worked out better for him. Obviously, for facing me, that might be having one that's heavily armored probably would have been a better choice.
Yeah. We heard that from Victor too, where in one of his fights the previous season, where he brought in the final time we saw this particular iteration of Rotator, it was so hard to get both discs running at the same time. It was like putting two robots in the arena at once, and that's why he went forward with the one disc design, because it's just easier to maintain. And I can't imagine the future of multi-bots. I know in the future we have was it Jaeger coming eventually? Jaeger, yeah. So and that's gonna be fun to keep going, but we'll see.
Lots of spares required.
Oh yeah.
With this fight, I think Gruff was absolutely incredible. Like, the control, as ever, is just very, very good. They kept Gemini where they wanted them, on top of the robot. They used the flames throughout. Textbook Gruff performance, really. It was, they've really come a long way. And obviously, I know they've been fighting for years as well on at Robo games and things like that. But this was particularly impressive. Like,
they struggled towards the end of the main season.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was really good to see them back on some form again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. We got some good cooking. It was fun. This was the beginning of that. It was nice to see. It was nice to see Gemini actually be effective, because it really has been on the downswing. And I hate to say that, where we've seen this robot since 2016. It just hasn't taken that next step. So I'll be curious to see what that team brings back. I know they have a lot of future with Slapbox, and we'll see where that team goes. But it was an interesting way to lose on top of the polarizer.
I know. Okay. And Gruff didn't need to let it go, so they didn't.
No.
Fair enough. Secure that win, boys. Secure that win.
Absolutely.
Fight number 2. I'm actually going to come to Ray first with this one, because obviously you're renowned for having Tombstone, which is, on the outside it looks very simple. It looks quite, conventional, if you like, as a design. When you see a fight like Smeeeee versus Mammoth, what goes through your head? Because what is going on?
Yeah, each of them are an incredibly unique take on building a combat robot. And as they've shown through the fights, it doesn't mean they're not effective. Okay, they're completely odd. They're completely unique in what they do. And then you have to think, okay, so if I fight that, how do I deal with that? Because it's just this big ball of weirdness. In Mammoth's case is really big ball of weirdness, right? And so I haven't fought either of them, so I'm going to have to kind of give that some thought if we reach that point, because they're both unique. I could see. The guys that built Smeeeee, I like the idea. I like what they were doing. They need to learn how to build a better weapon. Those cutters on the end, they were
token weapons.
Those could be vicious. Their design could absolutely be vicious. They just need to actually have something on those weapons that's going to cut, because they got a hold of Mammoth's tires a dozen different times, and those tires should have been gone. They should have just cut them off, right? From Mammoth's perspective, for him, it's all about position. He gets you in the right spot, you are going to fly away. And so and he could do that against. He's fought some kinetic energy robots and done okay with that. So it's. I wouldn't want to discount either of them, even though they're both kind of goofy looking. It's you'd still have to take them serious.
Definitely. With Mammoth's record this year, this was their breakout year.
Absolutely.
You don't expect that from scaffolding on wheels. But it's definitely one of those robots where you can't overlook it at all. And I guess the same would go for Smeeeee. Smeeeee is interesting. That robot's evolved quite a bit. It used to be this little wedge with 2 wheels and a little lifter, and it became this stupidly wide wedge, which does so well in the beetleweight arenas. I think because of the fact that beetleweight arenas are smaller. The thing is with a robot, like,
isn't it?
Yeah, the problem is the BattleBots is so much bigger. Smeeeee really, and I've said this before, Smeeeee really benefits smothering you and shrinking the box and making it so you can't drive anywhere they don't want you to drive. And it's hard to get behind. I've seen so many fights of the beetleweight version. You can't get behind that thing. This one, it takes some time. That volumetric scaling really. They need to figure out how to make that work. Where just making it bigger just didn't work this time. And definitely stronger weapons. That thing could be really scary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, we mentioned already, this is their first heavyweight to my knowledge. I don't think they built another one.
I believe so too.
Yeah.
So,
well, what about Button Lee?
Oh yeah.
Over
in China. Okay, so of this style, let's say,
yes,
of the Smeeeee style,
correct.
And I think the thing that I think benefits the beetleweight quite a lot as well, it is so fast.
Yes. And
I think that it's kind of difficult to replicate that acceleration and that kind of turn of speed in the battle box with a heavyweight, because heavyweights tend to be I find quite floaty compared to the inset weight counterparts. It's kind of difficult to be as, precision driving.
There's a lot more momentum, exactly. A lot more weight going in, a lot more to slow down.
I mean, you can see the difference between some other heavyweights, and then you see something like Tantrum Fight, which is it drives like a smaller weight class robot, as you've said in past, Steve.
Yep, definitely.
It drives,
it's like it's driving on another planet.
Yeah, it's like the gravity is more for Tantrum, because it stops where you want it to, and then it turns, and then it goes where you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas other robots, there's a bit more drift.
Yeah.
This was just a wonderful fight. I mean, it's so stupid. I have no idea what's going on.
It's a shame the way it ended with Mammoth's weapon just becoming chewy taffy at the end. But I mean,
it did just start eating itself, trying to get back.
Yeah.
It really, I think, stress test against this new floor did not hold up, unfortunately. And the fact that it couldn't quite pick Smeeeee up how it wanted to, because Smeeeee is such an
short.
It's so awkward as well.
Yeah. It's a really weird shape. And the time that they did manage to get underneath it, they sort of threw themselves backwards across the box. Which
we got to see more springs. We got to see more jump springs. Yes, more gymnastics from Mammoth.
It's such a weird robot, and like the way it just moves around, like even when it's trying to flip itself, it's just I have no idea what it's doing. I don't think they have full understanding of what it's doing, but it's great to watch.
No, definitely makes great TV.
Makes for the whole prank that they pulled early on, with they painted their box with Nuts 3 on the side. I mean, they are quite similar in how you fight them. Neither you nor your opponent knows quite what's going to happen in a Mammoth fight.
But it'd be hilarious when it happens.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Smeeeee through.
Smeeeee through just like that. And fight 3 was a bit of an interesting one. It was Jackpot and Deadlift. Jackpot, of course, made the top 32. Deadlift we barely saw in the conventional season, and it was one-way traffic.
I know. It's so strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, where was this Deadlift?
I mean, it's wonderful. I absolutely love Deadlift. It is a really...
The movement of the lifter is so smooth.
Yeah, it really is. And it just... In this fight especially, there's Jackpot doing weird physics things again, where it's just sort of hovering in midair as it's lifted up, and there's a brutal rollover and flame from Deadlift. It's just it's a good fight. It's a good fight. I like it.
Unfortunate for Jackpot to land on the side where they can't self-right.
Yeah,
with the way that self-right is designed. I mean,
they've worked on that. If they get to this season, I think they've got a bit of a different Shremek this time. Less death roll.
Yeah, it went. As well as they could have gone for Deadlift. I mean, they slammed Jackpot into the screw box, which has taken so many beatings this year already.
It was rough.
And that was the end of the weapon. And that was it. As soon as that's gone, then they didn't really stand the chance, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Any robot with a big weapon, once their weapon is down, they're usually pretty well done at that point.
Well, you can attest to that, can't you? I mean, look how your season ended this year.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, unfortunately.
It becomes really tough to change your strategy once your main strategy tumbles. So, I mean, for both of these robots coming in, both rookies, how do you rate them, Ray? I know Jackpot, we were unassuming at the beginning of the season. I know maybe some of us were a little hard on it because it was a quick build, a cheap build, but I think it all kind of grew on us.
Yeah, I mean, they did really well with the amount of effort and money that they put into it. It is fairly solid in how it's built. There's a lot of internal things that they needed to do differently. So you give them a season or two to put some experience behind it. And I think it could be a pretty solid robot.
I think you could say the same for Deadlift.
I was just going to say, as far as Deadlift goes, I'd say exactly the same thing. It's incredibly low. The profile on it's really low. He's going to get under a lot of people. So if he can improve some of the dependability issues on it and whatnot, they've got a chance to win matches. Absolutely, it's a solid design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the three times we've seen it this season, like, you know, instead of a highlighted fight against Mammoth, like the 3 fights, we'll talk about the other one a bit later on. Every single one, like, it starts as the aggressor and is on top throughout until something unfortunately goes wrong. Like, again, we can chalk that up to experience. I'm sure they won't make the same mistakes again. But it's a very promising start for Deadlift, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of them, hopefully, within the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agreed.
Definitely.
Let's talk about Fight 4. Now, was Kraken and Claw Viper, 2 reptilian creatures of the dark, if you like. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That went somewhere.
It really did. This was pretty interesting tactically. Like, they both have a very not sluggish weapon, if you like, because Kraken is, you know, designed to grab hold of people and, you know, control them, and Claw Viper is similar but not the same. You know, it's designed to lift them over and cause them inconvenience, if you like, in the way that they're going to win. Kraken didn't have it all its own way. I thought this would be not an easy win for Kraken because we saw how good Claw Viper was, you know, in its first few fights this season. But I thought it was going to be easier than maybe it was. And I think that's all credit to Claw Viper for giving them a really good fight and turning Kraken over, I think, once or twice.
Yeah, it's a couple of times. I mean, when there's a couple of moments where Kraken gets a hold and you know that they're going to use all 30 seconds of that grappling time to deal with what they will.
And more.
And yeah,
sometimes.
They managed to get a good hold multiple times throughout this fight. And then you see when eventually Kraken does release, Claw Viper, I continue to underestimate its speed because every time I watch it, I forget just how quick it is. And it's away, it's gone. It's like, you're not going to grab me again so easily. Gets away, comes back round, tries to find a way in, and they do manage it a couple of times. There's a point in this fight where they do get a grapple and try to lift, and their whole body just sort of opens into a sort of bit of a mess.
Like that.
Which is, I know, there's ways around it that you could manufacture, maybe having some long forks out the front to stop them from leaning forwards quite so much, or I don't know. But, you know, it's a really good back and forth fight.
Yeah, I did like the part before this fight where we got to see Pete kind of nerd out about Claw Viper's mechanism with their lifting arm.
Model.
It's very, very cool, and it's a very contained, and it's simplistic and it works, but it just needs more time in the arena, and that's really the case for that robot.
It uses the same grab lift setup that Slammo does, in that it grabs enough to get a hold, and then the same thing then lifts the other robot up. It doesn't grab more than it needs to. It's sort of, I think it's torque reaction or something like that. It's really clever, and I can't quite wrap my head around it.
It's very, very cool. And then Kraken, I think, deservedly winning this fight. Just squeaking it out in the end.
I think the damage on the forks, because the forks split on Claw Viper, didn't it? Towards it, it was kind of like that.
It was just snapped completely and folded over. I'm not sure exactly when in the fight that happened, but that if nothing else, that surely swung it toward Kraken. And Kraken's weapon does seem slow, but we also need to remember it's punching through really hard material, because there's some times where that thing snaps quick. But that's also when it's not when it's just
It's not happy.
Right. That's the thing. But this was a really solid fight. We got a lot more fire, which was nice. It's nice to see Kraken really come into its own this season. I really think this has been its best time out.
I would agree. They've made a lot of improvements over the years with it. Obviously their take to get in here was a bit of a gimmick, but they've taken that and they've improved every year, and they'll win matches against top level teams. Going the distance and winning the championship. I don't know if I go that far with them yet, but
it's a lot of judges' decisions.
but as far as winning some matches against top teams, they can do that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely.
No, absolutely. They've really, actually, they've kind of turned this. It's not a joke robot because obviously it's very serious, but like it's a less competitive concept, and they've turned it into something that actually works really well. Like they're really maximizing this design now.
I mean, they've gone away where they don't want to have. Sorry, they've gone away where they don't want to just put in a vert or something that has real punch power. It's more dominate the round, and one of our co-hosts, Anderson, would definitely contest to this. He and I both adore control robots. One of my favorite robots from the classic era is Complete Control for good reason. It's just it was one of those robots where you knew you were going to get a good fight out of it. And it's just, you knew it wasn't going to be maybe a big knockout, 30 seconds, you're dead. It was going to be a good ground and pound, bring them around, a tour of the box. And that was those. I'll be honest, I do love my destruction, but I like my tactical matches too. I like bots that can really just stop you from doing what you want to do, make it hard for you. I really like designs like that, and it really shows through in Kraken. They really make it difficult for other robots to do what they want to do.
Yeah, Matt has said that this version of Kraken is just worlds apart from what they started with. I mean, to the point where he'd say, "Whose robot's that? That's not ours."
Yeah, definitely.
I'm ignorance to it, but yeah, it's a whole different beast, and especially in this fight, I love to see the flames going as well, all over Claw Viper.
I do worry about it burning itself though when it drives forward. I'm like, man, would it be better if they grabbed it and drove back, and then the flame went this
just
way
above where the fire is? Yeah, I mean, you do worry about that sort of thing sometimes.
Yeah,
it's definitely fine. They've thought about it right.
It's fine.
Moving on to round 2, we start with Gruff and Deadlift.
Spider-Man pointing meme.
It really is.
Yeah, we talked about this, Jevin. You pointed out that you like Deadlift more than Gruff because it does Gruff better than Gruff.
I think, given time, I think Deadlift will do Gruff better than Gruff. I just like it more. I think it's more polished and nice looking. I'm a big fan of sort of you more grungy robots.
It's like Gruff is built out of dirty materials that they found in a scrapyard, whereas Deadlift is like it's come out of a Deadlift like it's come out of a lab. You know what I mean? Like it just looks clean. Maybe it's the white. I don't know what it is, but it's the white front end. It looks.
Deadlift looks like it came off an assembly line.
Yeah,
to be honest with you, and Gruff looks like he dug it up from outside.
I mean, this is a Red Dwarf reference. Is Demons and Angels.
Okay. But between the two, I can tell you that as far as structural strength goes, Gruff is 50 times more tough than Deadlift is.
I mean, Gruff is an absolute tank.
So they actually have a steel sponsor that gives them some weird alloy of an AR plate. It's like a tank armor type stuff.
Okay.
That's what it's steel. It's an AR type steel, but it's not something you or I can just go buy. It's
their recipe.
It's some unique stuff. And I've hit a lot of AR plates, so I know what it does, and they're unbelievably tough.
And you've had your fair share of fights against that robot.
Yeah. So I know what it takes to damage it. It's a tough beast, and so Deadlift they do the ground game really well. You know, it is a pretty looking package and whatnot. They got a long ways to go before they're in Gruff's league. As far
we're
as
very wishful thinking here.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I love their design. I love the robot. I think they could go far. Of some improvements, it'll definitely get better.
Yeah.
But in that, I'm gonna just take on the big weapon sort of thought process. They got a long ways to go before they're in Gruff's league.
Definitely.
It was Gruff on the back foot at the start, and as I say, the ground game for Gruff isn't necessarily their strongest point, but then again, they don't always go for that. They're there to take the hits and break your fist with their face, basically. And in the end, it kind of worked because Deadlift just their weapon packed up. It got stuck open, and at that point, all Gruff needed to do was turn them over, and that's exactly
a matter
what
of
they
time.
did. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame, but that's sometimes how it goes. You can't runs flawlessly for forever. Sometimes something has to break, and it isn't the first time it's happened. I think when it fought Ghost Raptor last week as well, was it?
Mm-hmm.
And it just packed up. Then I don't know what stopped.
Yeah, it just kind of skidded to a stop, like you pulled the power plug. It would just something electrically went wrong, or mechanically. It couldn't tell you exactly what went wrong. We'd need more info from the team, but it just seemed to just cut out. And I don't think it's terribly too different from what happened this time. Something got stuck, and
that shouldn't have done.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I know we've talked it up, but I mean Gruff was the better robot this time for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
and they showed it.
It is like looking at a younger version of yourself. This fight, I mean, Gruff has had more sort of experience, more fights, and they are a
exponentially
well-tuned robot that for what they might have started out life as, and that's how I saw this one.
Yep. Fight number 6. Smeeeee versus Kraken. This was very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Because
this was fun.
Kraken just could not, it was about a minute and a half in before they got the first hold on Smeeeee, because Smeeeee is just so slippery.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very interesting. And Smeeeee drove a fantastic fight. We mentioned earlier about the cutting off the angles of the pucks and kind of smothering the opponent. They did that very well for the first minute and a half. As soon as Kraken kind of got to the one side and to the rear especially, that was when the fight started to change.
Yeah. It really got a good bite on one of those drive pods, and that's.
I think the team said it went straight through.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to see stuff like that happen with the Kraken Crusher, because I feel like we've seen a lot of fights where it grabs and it's able to drive things around, but and it was really nice to see Kraken actually get through Smeeee's frame, really puncture one of those drive pods. It's a really effective little crusher, man. It's more than just a grab and push around robot. It can really do some serious damage if given the opportunity. So,
yeah, I think in the end this one went to a split decision, didn't it? It was quite close.
More judges' decisions for Matt. He's going to melt away to nothing, just like they said, man. It's terrible.
It was very close. I think I really think Smeeeee would have won the fight had it not been for the last sort of 20 to 15 seconds when they got round the back and kind of grabbed the middle.
They really grabbed the big wedge. Yeah, how was that? That was exceptional.
Yeah, they had the whole thing, and they're sitting there cooking all they're doing is cooking the stickers off.
Yep.
It's not
and
like
whatever
really
plastic, it's like, yeah.
But if the last thing the judges see at the end of the match is you getting held in the jaws, getting flamed, that's a last impression that sticks with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a shame for Smeeeee because they did so much hard work at the start, and I think it would have been very interesting to see how Gruff would have dealt with such an unusual robot as well, like kind of because they can't really lift it. It's a bit unconventional to fight, but I mean, they can have no complaints. I mean, as I say, Smeeeee is a rookie robot at this point, and they fought an established veteran at this point in Kraken who's beaten top teams.
Yep.
Amazing stuff from them, and they can take a lot of pride.
Yeah, and Smeeeee didn't really start out so strong this season. I know they had a hard time getting to the box their very first fight. Just they were having trouble with their drive pods, I think, back early on. They were trying to. It was very difficult. But it was a pretty good showing against a really tough veteran and a robot that's really they fought a robot that really has grown. And maybe they'll go back to the drawing board like Ray told us, and maybe beef up those weapons, and they'll be really scary.
I honestly think if those weapons were capable of simply yanking off a tire, that's all they need to do. They don't need to be frame killers. They just need to be able to yank off a tire. And if they can do
boa
that,
constrictor.
if they can do that, they will win a lot of matches. Just sort of wrap somebody up and cut wheels off. They'd win a lot of matches that way.
Like Jonathan Pierce would say, never bring tires into the arena.
I'm pretty sure he also said never bring wheels into the arena. So.
That right? Yeah,
50-50 for him.
I was close.
Oh, dearie me. Well, it does mean our final for the Bounty Hunter tournament was Kraken versus Gruff. Before we talk about the fight itself, who would you have rather fought, Ray? Obviously, I know we kind of mentioned at the start, you wanted someone new. Would you have rather fought Kraken than Gruff?
They asked you. I know you kind of dodged their question.
Well, and honestly, I'm probably going to dodge your guys' question. I would have loved to have fought Kraken because I haven't fought them before. They wanted to hype up the rematch between me and Gruff to do that. So I'm sure they were happy TV wise that it worked out, the way it did. I would have been fine with either one of them. I'd have beat either one. It wouldn't have mattered.
Right, there you go.
Okay.
That's the Ray we know.
Absolutely. Fight starts with Kraken immediately grabbing hold of that flamethrower of Gruff.
Let's just, before that happens, there's something quite large we need to address here.
Is it Cyber Kraken?
We are the Borg. Resistance is futile.
Yeah.
They covered it in kitchen foil. It's incredible. Yeah. And it didn't work to keep the flame off, but it looks great.
Yeah. It looked better on your grill.
Yeah,
they were, because the shell pieces on that head are all plastic.
Yeah,
and what they in their head, what they had figured is if they managed to get under Gruff and hold him up, and then he was cooking those flamethrowers into the head, that when they parted, Kraken would be driving around in the arena with a flaming head, right?
Or like a melting.
Exactly. That was, and most of that up top is looks. It's not really that important to how the robot functions. But if you're driving around with your head on fire, this doesn't look good as far as judges' decisions go.
Very true.
You could ask the Brazilians about that.
Yeah, well, but you know what I'm saying. Their point was not necessarily that they, hey, you know what? For this match, let's have a silver robot. That wasn't what they were after. They mostly just wanted to keep that head from catching on fire.
Yeah. Definitely. Or at the very least, hiding the fact that it was on fire under.
It could be smoking inside, but yeah, so it's our actual flames billowing off your head.
It kind of turned into a blade of armor at one point, though. Honestly, the more they mashed their heads together, it'll stay on so long.
Yeah, as I said, they did get the good grab at the start. They held them for the 30 seconds that they're allowed to. Poor narwhal once again getting squished by Gruff. And the team was so happy that they got it as well. It was just this poor thing. And then Kraken couldn't self-right for the longest time. They got turned over by Gruff, and I think that is what really cost it, because for the majority of the fight, they did have, I think, not an upper hand, if you like, but they had a solid foundation in the fight.
I would agree.
But that, it was a good 20 seconds, and obviously, you can see the ref is about to start counting them out, and then they just happened to fall and hit that rail, didn't they?
I don't think the head was able to move its full range at that point in time, because in that position, I think he can open the head all the way up and still flip back up. So I'd almost want to call that damage, because it didn't look to me like he was able to move the jaw apart enough to flip himself back on his feet.
So something internally, just something wasn't right.
Something wasn't, because I'm 100% convinced if that robot was everything working correctly, he could get back on his feet with no problem.
Yeah, as we've seen, it's done quite a lot this season. It's been very,
it's like a robot Weeble. Like you can't seem to knock it over. It always seems to fall back on its wheels. Kind of a la Pussycat, or like no matter how you flipped it, it seemed to always have a way to get back in. But just. He wore down this fight, and Gruff really did take control.
I mean, we have to remember as well, at this point, we've said it a couple of times already, covering Bounty Hunters. At this point, Kraken is now, this is its 7th fight.
Yeah.
And it's fought some serious opponents this year as well, very serious opponents, throughout the competition.
Correct.
And that's probably taken its toll. I think, throughout this whole episode, you don't see the narrow mouth Kraken. It's the new one with the wedge, and I think could have been a sign that maybe one frame was just done, and I don't know. It's all speculation at this point from my end, but a lot of fatigue does happen. You get wear and tear, and eventually some things don't work how they used to, and unfortunately, that's how it went this time for Kraken.
Make me wish we reach out to Matt for comment. But hey, can't have everything.
Below.
There you go. Yeah, it'll work. Yep. This is YouTube after all.
Absolutely. So it does mean the rematch that quite a lot of people were looking forward to. Gruff and Tombstone obviously was a brilliant fight back in 2019. But
I will say I watched this fight the first time I watched this fight. I was in line with my sister. We were in Disney World, and I was in line for a roller coaster. I think it was the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and I was watching it on my phone. I remember this. I don't know why. In any case, I was sitting in line, and I saw the end of this fight, and I'm like, he's just gonna squeak this out because Gruff has lost drive on the back, and he's done such a good job driving you around, and it just wore him down. And I was expecting that again this time.
It was that last, again, we mentioned it already, like it was that last kind of 20 to 30 seconds of the fight. I think, I'm feel free to disagree with this one, right, because
I won from beginning to end. You guys saw it. You guys are all crazy.
Okay, well there you go.
No.
Controversy over.
Yeah. That's they didn't put that in the show because they were trying to talk about controversy and all that from the time before, and I said there wasn't any controversy. I kicked his ass there too. Right? But in that first match, he was definitely in charge of how things were going. I was the only one that was causing any damage.
Sure. That's the thing.
When that happens, it is a slow chew you down sort of process. Mm-hmm. So any way you want to, a lot of people would try to tweak the scores so that Gruff could win because they felt like Gruff could win.
Yeah.
If you look at the way it's judged, at the end of the match, I worked perfectly. I had zero damage. There wasn't a scratch on the robot. I charged batteries and I was ready for the next match. There was nothing wrong with the robot. Mm-hmm. I damaged his flamethrower, his lifter, his drive. Okay, it was a complete one-sided fight as far as damage goes.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing.
So then you're going to try to say that I had no aggression, that I had no control. That doesn't add up that way. So did I win in those last few seconds when I killed the drive? I would say yes, I probably did. But I don't think there's any controversy about that I won that match.
No.
Yeah,
that was the opinion of. I went on a Fight Court episode with Mr. Psycho, Mike, where we discussed that fight, and I think all of us who did it agreed that in the BattleBots rules, Tombstone won the match. There was no argument there.
Yeah,
when they announced it, I thought, that's fair. And then,
that's the risk you take bringing a non-damaging weapon into the box. You're basically giving that category to the other team unless something happens.
Well, you're just hoping that, like in Gruff's case, he can take on a lot of big kinetic enemies robots and make them break themselves over the course of the match. Mm-hmm. And in that first match between us, if we'd have gone another 30 seconds, I would have overheated my batteries and I would have not had a weapon. So his strategy is a really, really good one. Mm-hmm. In that particular match, I was still working at the end of the match. You literally can't give him a single damage point. There was no damage to the robot.
Right.
And it's hard to win a match in a combat if you can't damage the other robot. I mean, you need to be able to cause some damage.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, this time...
Yeah, cause damage you did.
Cause damage you did. I mean, it was... it was...
You say it, Sam, one-way traffic. It really was.
One-way traffic. It was, honestly, like, the box rush, okay, you expect that, of course, because, that's the go-to tactic against Tombstone these days, right? Mm-hmm. Just charge straight at them, see what happens. And you just pulled it apart. It was just merciless.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. So we switched up weapon bars for that particular match. So the weapon I was using was the S7 bar that I'd used actually in the match when I won the championship. So I've had that one for a long time. I hate to lean back to it because it's got such a long fight history.
Yeah.
You get stress fractures. You don't know or can't find that crop themselves up in the match. So I was worried about snapping it, but I also knew it was the only one I had that was actually hard enough and sharp enough to dig in to the armor that he's got. It's the only real choice I had.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to see in the video footage, but the front corners where that big wedge was that they'd welded on were thick. There was over half an inch of material on those corners. And he had two pretty good sized holes on each corner of that wedge that I'd managed to actually cut through. I mean, it was impressive to me. And I've seen a lot of that stuff. We're out there after the match looking at that and I go, that's a lot of material right there that I cut through, you know? So I think it was some of those big hits that's what broke something internally and it's why he stopped driving.
Yeah.
It was an interesting tactic from Gruff to bring in the sword for this fight, I think.
Yeah.
One of the good things about their 2019 fight was that they managed to get underneath Tombstone, lift it up, and then sort of land Tombstone on the front wedge or, make Tombstone bounce across the ring, which, as you've said in the past, Tombstone's worst enemy is itself.
Correct.
It's going to break itself eventually if you can run it or run against it long enough.
Well, the goal is to have that never happen.
Well, exactly. So, yeah, I found it a really interesting decision to go for the sword. I think what they were trying to do was get it into Tombstone so that they could lift it up. That seemed
honestly, what they were hoping is if they managed to spear it over the weapon and get in that general area, if they went up or down, it doesn't matter at that point in time, because if they go down, it's probably my weapon that's going to drag it through my own chain. Or if they go up, they can either cut the chain or pull it off the sprocket or something. They were trying to disassociate the chain so that I would lose the weapon. Because then at that point in time, then I'm fair game to do whatever they want at that point. So it's not a bad thought. It didn't play out for them, but I get what they were after.
But
sword ended up in a banana shape.
It did.
It's very tough we've seen a few robots try to go after chains, both intentionally and unintentionally. Nuts Carbide, but
against yourself.
Bombshell again, trying to get that blade just right where it needs to be to snap that chain. It's such a difficult thing to do. It's like it's like shooting a target from 100 feet away. It's not, and getting the bullseye. It's not. It's easy in concept, but difficult in practice.
Well, you mentioned the Bombshell fight when I fought them and they had that cut where they were trying to cut my chain. When they actually hit, they were about an inch, maybe slightly less low. So there's a big gouge right on my weapon hub where they hit, and so they were an inch away from doing what they were after. Yeah. They had one shot and they blew it. And
did you make them pay for it?
they did get the shot, and that's how close they were to making it happen.
Well, it's only fair to give them one chance, isn't it? Surely. You did win.
Yeah.
You keep your bounty. Are you happy with the way that the season went overall? I mean, obviously you won 3, you lost 3.
Yeah.
How would you summarize?
Yeah, could we have done better? Certainly, we could have. Do I feel horrible about how any of them went? Not particularly. I mean, it's nobody likes to admit that luck is a big part of this game, but it is. Okay. Sometimes you get really lucky, and sometimes you just don't. And I'm not going to cry over any of this. I mean, I wish some things had happened differently, but that's the nature of the sport. So we're in the process of a rebuild. What we'll show up with next time will be better. Will it go the distance and win another nut? I don't know. I mean, that's obviously what we're after. So hopefully we can climb right back to the top of this pile and shred a few people along the way.
It's going to be fun.
Sounds good to me. I mean, obviously, we've one thing that we've kind of, seen a lot of this year. Obviously, I know you can only read into so much on social media, but obviously, a lot of the comments have been, "Oh, Tombstone is past it." Do you genuinely believe that Tombstone can still win another giant nut?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This year was a little difficult on more of a personal level. So, I was recovering from an auto accident. I've got some neck and back issues, and I'm having a hard time admitting I'm just not the same man I was before. I'm definitely a little slower now. And so, you know, I'm moaning about my health, and then my teammate Rick, he got run over by a truck. Okay, collapsed his lung, broke it. The whole time he's there at BattleBots fixing my robot, he's got this big titanium plate in his chest holding his ribs. He got damaged a lot.
Yeah.
And so both of us were sort of limping along going through this event, and towards the end, you could see that we were both kind of getting worn down. Now, his health is fantastic now. He's doing really good.
That's why I was going to ask you. I'm like, how's he doing now?
You know, he's doing much better. I mean, you know, he was only, I don't know, 5 months after that accident when we were there at BattleBots filming. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, he's recovering.
And hopefully you're doing better too, honestly.
You know, I'm making progress. We're still working on stuff, but I'm making progress. So, you know, that's, I don't want to use that as an excuse because that sounds just lame to me to say that. But the simple truth is that
it's going to make a difference.
We weren't 100%, and it showed.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, human beings, we're very squishy. We don't react well like the robots to shock. So yeah, we need more time to heal. It's fine. It's completely understandable.
Yeah. So you know, I love the whole comments. Yeah, because you know, let's face it. I've had some of a reputation as being the bad guy to the show. Well, totally undeserved. However,
I think Jake took some of that from you a little bit this year. And he enjoyed it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Actually, and it's funny because I love Jake. We were pitted right next to each other. You know, he's a great guy, but you know, he was smiling and enjoying it just as much as I have in the past. So it's like the title of the show, asshole. I will pass that on to you. It's all yours now, buddy.
It's fun to play the heel.
But when you are that guy, there is a large group of people that only watch and are only interested in hoping you fail. Mm-hmm. And so those are the people that are all jumping up and down. Tombstone's washed out. You know, it's over the hill. Hope he retires. Hope he never builds a robot again. I've got some interesting fan mail from all of this. Okay. You know, we're rebuilding. We'll be back better than ever, and we'll just see how it plays out. Can I win another championship? I absolutely believe I can. I wouldn't show up if I didn't think I could. Is it going to be difficult? Absolutely. The robots get tougher every single year. So
not only are you upgrading, they are too.
Everybody else is too. And I am in a unique spot in the sport. It's like if you walk up to every team in the pit, every single team, they have a Tombstone plant. They have something that they did specifically for me.
They made reference to it in the episode. They had a whole bit on it.
And it's not bullshit. This is legit. Yeah. If you walk up to every single team out there, they go, "What do you do for Tombstone?" And they'll drag out this massive AR wedge or whatever it is. Well, this is our Tombstone. If that's the case, if you have a room full of fairly brilliant people all trying to figure out some way to defeat you, some of them are going to do it. That's just the simple truth of it.
It must be quite flattering though that it's your robot that they're all scared of. Like that, everyone has to. We've had teams in the past, like Bombshell came back in 2018 with a robot designed to beat you.
Correct.
And it must be very flattering that every single team has to have a setup to fight you.
They can stop flattering me. Go build something to fight somebody else. Okay, leave me out of it. Bring your balsa wood wedge. That's the one to fight.
That was the main thing. So to everybody who thinks that sort of Tombstone's had its time, the Roboteers all bring things to fight it.
Specifically,
it definitely doesn't. It's not had its time at all.
Yeah.
Correct. It is still the biggest threat out there.
And the thing is, if that's the case, I could, obviously I want to come back and win another championship. That's what I'm after. That's what we're going for.
Yeah.
But if people continue to figure out ways specifically to fight this design of robot, I could see that perpetually being a problem to keep me from getting there.
Sure.
And so all of those people are still going to go, well, let's see, Tombstone's over the hill, blah, 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 all the rest of that. And it's like, I'm still the guy everybody does not want to fight. That's never going to change.
It's like you're fighting an army.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
it's funny because before this, I kind of, I had a list of questions I was going to ask, because obviously it's a very unique position. We have, someone of your stature, who's won BattleBots, who's been there and done it. I was going to ask a bunch of questions and you've already answered them all. It's really annoying.
I have one.
I like to talk about robots.
Yeah, I have one. From you've been around since Series 4.0. Back when you had the middleweight mortician and other robots and all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. Is there something that you would tell your past self to prepare you for now? Like what would Ray this time tell old Ray?
Yeah. Okay. So what I tell new people that say, "How do I get in the sport? Where do I start?"
That's really more.
I want to build a robot.
Yeah.
And my first statement for now is build an insect. Go find a local event. Go find one that's local to you. Okay, something that you can support routinely. Build an ant or a beetle weight. Even if you don't have the resources to build, just show up. Yeah. Okay, con your way onto a team. Go to the event organizer and ask if you can help. Get some exposure to an event at a smaller scale, because you can learn a lot of the same skills at a vastly smaller amount of money. Okay. So it's a great way for people to get started. Unfortunately, when I started, there just really wasn't anything else. If you wanted to build a combat robot, it was BattleBots,
Yeah.
And to be fair, my original thought was I was going to build a lightweight. And as I started welding shit together, it's like, no, this is turning into a middleweight. So, the idea of starting small, that is absolutely the best way to get started. It's a way to get your feet wet and kind of get into the sport, and you can do it for much less money.
Yeah, we've seen that. Yeah,
the number of teams in BattleBots 2020 who have started out on the beetleweight scene. I mean, a lot of the robots this year are scaled up versions. I mean, things like Smeeeee, things like Train.
Yeah,
these are all
Malice.
Beetleweight. Exactly, these are all beetleweight competitors who
Claw Viper
sort of really got their their design in. And
the only thing they find there is there's designs do not scale.
Yeah.
Okay. So that they're you can't just say, well, it works real good as a beetle, so I'm just gonna multiply it by X, and all of a sudden
hijinks. That's another one.
A really, really good heavy, and it doesn't.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
The physics don't quite work that way.
Yeah.
But at least the basics of designing, building, repairing, going to an event, the logistics of making sure you've got a team and they actually have food and you have somewhere to stay, and there's a million business decisions that don't have anything to do with the robot that you still have to manage, and you start to get those things in line competing at smaller scale events where mistakes don't necessarily cost you the same amount that they are in a heavyweight. I mean, if I screw up and we're out of the event, I got $100,000 going to BattleBots. So if I do something horrible right up front, I flush $100,000 down the toilet. That's not a good event.
No,
you're a fraction of that at a beetle event, and if you make some calamity mistake, then it's like, you know what, we'll get them next time. Hang out and watch the fights, and so it's the expectations and stress level are just so different at an insect event.
Yeah, we've seen that this year and last year with Norwalk, where you've kind of become very well known as a mentor to young Tyler Nguyen. You've kind of had a neat little dynamic there, and kind of watching him grow as a builder and a driver.
He's a good kid. He's a great driver. We'll keep working with Perfect Phoenix. I honestly, if I were to remove Tombstone completely and just devote my engineering skill to getting Perfect Phoenix top notch, he'd be right there at the end. I don't know how. I wouldn't say he'd win, but he'd be right there in the top 8, top 4 type spot. Mm-hmm. It's just hard for me to devote all of the time it takes to 2 heavyweights to get them both.
Oh yeah,
giant nut worthy, and
one's not enough. Yeah.
Yeah, so for this season, we are rebuilding Perfect Phoenix. There's some improvements and changes.
You have to run them by Paul first. Or is it just your baby now?
No. And
I don't know.
don't get me wrong, Paul and I are great friends, but
I bet.
he's like it's gone.
Yeah, that's done.
You know?
It's yours now. It's your problem.
Yeah.
I am rid of it.
Yeah, he's got his own demons to slay in the garage.
Yeah, man.
So we'll see how it turns out. Long term, I've got some really good plans for it, but it's just not going to happen this year. There's no time and money to make it all happen.
Sure. Finally, then, from me, before we kind of wrap this up, obviously you fought so many teams, as you've already said. Which one is your favourite fight of? So let's say since BattleBots came back, because there are so many to choose from.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, obviously, the fight where I won the championship was probably a favorite, simply because that's where I got to carry a giant nut home. If I have to pick a match that somebody says, I've never seen BattleBots, here, show me what it is, okay? And so I'm going to pick matches of mine to show. So the three that I routinely pick are me against Minotaur, okay? That was almost a full 3 minutes of two top-notch robots beating the snot out of each other. The new arena floor they have today is a direct result of that match. Everybody should thank me. Okay? All right. I think there were 9 holes in the arena floor, most of them down through all the floor into the structure that holds the floor up. They took almost 3 hours to repair the arena between sessions before they could get back to fight. Okay, so the new floor is the new
3 hours.
the new floor. That's my doing. Okay, so that match and my match against Witch Doctor, where I won, but I broke the weapon bar. Okay, so that's another one where it's like, hey, I mean, I was losing right up to the time I won. Okay, let's put it that way. That was a really great match. The last one I usually it's more just a display of power sort of thing is my first match against Counter Revolution.
That fight
instantly clippable.
Because it's like, okay, so I real brief explanation. The internal rail all the way around is 44 feet across. So he was more than halfway across that arena when I hit him through the air on the rail. Okay?
It was incredible.
So whatever you think you can punt 250 pounds, 30 feet, you go right ahead. Okay. So that was just a great display of how much power Tombstone puts out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's
cool.
Brilliant way to end. Ray, thank you so much for some great insight, and I hope you'll come back again and talk to us.
Oh yeah, I have no problem. Like I said, I love talking about robots. So the hard part's getting me to shut up.
Never want you to at all. Please come back next year. With that said, I have been Sam Elliott 64.
I've been Steve the American Killjoy.
I have been Walter Woodrow.
And I'm Ray Billings, your one-time BattleBots champion.
For now.
For the foreseeable at least. And we will see you next week for more BattleBots Bounty Hunters. We'll see you then.